The government cabinet has just approved Green Party Minister Eamon Ryan's climate bill, meaning we can all basically kiss our nation's economy and any remaining shreds of common sense goodbye. This is Ben Scallan and you're watching Gript Media. Here at Gript, we've already done several videos about Eamon Ryan's proposed climate bill, but now it's finally been approved and the hour is at last upon us. According to Eamon Ryan himself, this bill sets the most ambitious climate targets in the world. The Climate Action Bill, published on Tuesday, is the most ambitious legislation of its type in any country to date, the government has said, as it plans to enshrine in law a target to halve carbon emissions by 2030 and to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. No country has ever set such an ambitious target, said Mr. Ryan. It's a challenge beyond compare, but one we are going to achieve. Now, bear in mind that when he says ambitious, of course, that's really just a euphemism for extremely radical and costly for the ordinary person. Eamon Ryan has made no secret of the fact that he believes, quote, radical action is necessary to save the climate.
I'm a bit of an addict now, I'm a bit of a fanatic.
So what Ireland is doing here will be more radical than the policies in Germany, Sweden, Portugal, Canada, you name it. No other country has said that they want to halve their emissions by 2030 because they know it simply can't be done. It is a uniquely extreme and absurd idea that only an Irish politician could come up with. I said this already in a previous video, but to recap, Ireland locked down our entire economy for almost a year. And how much did we reduce our annual emissions by? Less than 6%. I kid you not. That's with almost no cars on the road, most businesses shut down, almost no flights, no trains, no buses. Total economic shutdown, and all of that amounted to a pathetic 6%. And this man, Eamon Ryan, wants to get that down to 50%, over 8 times as much reduction in less than 10 years. So what will be the consequences of this? Well, I think independent TD Michael Fitzmaurice summed it up best. People need to wake up to the consequences of climate bills, says TD. For the farming community, the price of agricultural diesel last year stood at 35 to 40 cents a litre. We are currently heading for 70 cents a litre, with another carbon tax increase on the way in May, he highlighted. The deputy continued, "We also see the prices of raw materials for construction, such as steel and timber, rising by up to 50%. How can you have a sustainable economy and jobs being created in those circumstances?" Under this new climate action bill, we are putting ourselves in a real danger of getting rid of jobs and turning the lights out, Fitzmaurice claimed. The fact of the matter is that the Ireland of the future that these dreamers are talking about will need 50% more electricity than we do at the moment, with 600,000 homes to be heated and 900,000 electric vehicles to be powered, the Roscommon Galway TD argued. According to Fitzmaurice, Ireland does not have the line capacity or production capacity to meet this requirement. We are now gone down the road of jeopardizing growing businesses and presenting a real possibility of the lights being turned off as we won't have enough power, he warned. And by the way, as a brief aside, he didn't say this, but I will. We're going to need all this extra electricity for all the electric vehicles and so on, and at the exact same time, the Greens have been running around the country shutting down peat power stations as well as banning exploration of gas and oil deposits. So they're putting us in a situation where we need vastly more electricity while also shutting down all of our power plants and energy sources. Where do they think electricity comes from? And before they say, well, what about renewables like wind power? Well, Texas found out what happens when you rely on wind power this year when a cold snap froze over their wind turbines and left more than 4.5 million homes and businesses without power for days. That's more households affected than we have in the Republic of Ireland. Imagine the entire country's power grid going down. Not just Clondalkin or Ballymun or some small village, but the entire country. And bear in mind that during cold weather, people need more electricity than normal to heat their homes. Over 70 people died of hypothermia in their houses due to these power outages with no way to keep themselves warm, including an 11-year-old boy who passed away in his bed. People were forced to huddle in their cars with the heat on to avoid literally freezing to death. Imagine this happening in a first world country. That happened just last month in America. It's unfathomable. And do you think cold snaps are more likely to strike Texas, which is literally a desert, or Ireland, where just a few weeks ago we were warned by Met Éireann of a hazardous 270-mile snow bomb hitting Europe? So when it comes to wind power, you're looking at either mass power outages at the first crisis that comes our way because we don't have enough energy to run a functioning society, or buying the same smoky fuel electricity from abroad, meaning the impact on the environment is actually worse by their own definition because we have to ship it overseas. Either that or buying nuclear power from countries like France. But as Eamon has already said, I don't think nuclear power will ever make sense in Ireland, so that rules that out. Even aside from these problems, there's also the issue of what effect these wind turbines will have on our wildlife. While Eamon is in the Dáil mincing words, his wind turbines will be in the fields mincing birds. These contraptions have been known to wreak havoc on ecosystems and kill any feathered creature that makes the mistake of flying too close. According to the US Fish and Wildlife Service, there are anywhere between 140,000 and 500,000 bird deaths on US wind farms every year, and that is expected to reach as much as 1.5 million as wind power ramps up. Ireland has at least 18 species of endangered native birds, so I'm not sure how Eamon Ryan will square this considering he's constantly going on about biodiversity and protecting our native species, even declaring a biodiversity emergency. He believes so much in this that he even proposed bringing wolves back and releasing them into the Irish wild.
Would we bring back wolves in our country? And I think yes. Bring back a sense of wilderness and bring back ecology in the sense that those wolves would prey on deer, which are actually holding back forestry at the present time.
Yeah, the wolves will prey on deer. They'll also prey on your nan while she's on the way to bingo, but let's not worry too much about that. Good man, Eamon. Another thing we never talk about is population growth. Eamon Ryan has made no bones about the fact that he wants to increase the population of Ireland to 10 million people, more than double its current figure, largely through letting in refugees in scale.
It not only shows a responsibility from the south to the north to the south, but also creates a society here where we can bring in people. We have to start planning for being an island of 10 million people, and among that, bringing in people as refugees in scale, not just 200, but a much larger number than that, and managing it as we do.
Bear in mind that people in third world countries, by and large, use far less carbon emissions per capita than people in Ireland. For example, according to our World in Data, the average Syrian uses 1.5 tons of CO2 per year, while the average person in Ireland uses over 8 tons. So in other words, every Syrian who comes here is adding over 5 times as much carbon to the atmosphere as they would back in their home country. And that's true of most third world places that alleged refugees come from, like Albania, Nigeria, etc. So even within the context of this deluded environmentalist wonderland, this makes no sense. So with all that said, what's this going to cost you as an individual? Well, the answer is a lot. For example, as Ireland's ability to acquire gas, oil, peat and briquettes goes out the window thanks to the Greens doing a number on board Nimona, how are people going to heat their homes? Well, Eamon Ryan has the answer.
We need to go into every home in the country and make sure that they're not burning fossil fuels, that we have, instead of a gas or oil-fired boiler, we have a heat pump and solar panels and really well-insulated, cosy homes. And it is, we're talking about...
And Eamon, I'm sorry who's going to pay for it?
If I can just finish the point, Mark, that's just the private homes. That will cost us about 50 billion. We also have to go into every social housing, every council house, and also every office and every school. It's just a huge project.
50 billion euro it's going to cost us just for the houses. That's not including the businesses and the schools and everything else. To put that number in perspective, Ireland's entire annual budget every year is around 90 billion, and he wants to spend 50 billion on retrofitting every single house in the country as a light warm-up. He's just getting his feet wet with that spending. Last November, just a few months ago, the state announced that they'd be giving 9 billion euros in grants to help people achieve this goal. So where's the other 41 billion going to come from? Well, Eamon says private financing, which is a nice coded way of saying you are going to pay for it.
A lot of it will be paid for by private financing, and we have to set up the mechanisms where we can get really low-cost loans so people can do it in a way that saves them money. So that actually the savings you
But
get
you still have to spend it.
You do. And also, do you know, the biggest constraint actually at the moment, Marion, is we probably need immediately probably about 20,000 workers, and they're not there at the moment.
Note that he even says he'll do you the lovely favour of getting you a cheap interest rate on the loan he makes you take out. What a sound guy. Eamon Ryan is so nice, he's the kind of guy to offer you a piece of gum even if he doesn't have any himself. At this point we must make the most important point of all, which I've said many times but which must always be pointed out when we're discussing this issue. Ireland's man-made carbon emissions account for 0.1% of the world's total. That means if you literally destroy the entire nation of Ireland, I'm talking you kill every Irish person and sink the whole island into the sea so it doesn't even exist on a map anymore, the world's carbon emissions would go down by 0.1%. This is what we are destroying our economy and our society for, to get this number down to half. It is the most epic fool's errand in human history. So where exactly is the opposition during all of this? Sinn Féin saw a huge surge at the polls during the last election because people were sick of what's going on and they wanted something different. So surely Sinn Féin stood up to this climate bill on behalf of the people, right? Well, they did object to it, I'll grant them that, but only to say that it wasn't radical enough. According to Mary Lou & Co., the only problem with this bill is that it didn't go further. Opposition slams revised climate bill as a betrayal of climate movement. The government's revised climate bill is a betrayal of the climate movement and defeats the purpose of the Green Party being in power, the opposition has claimed. The Cabinet is currently meeting to discuss its latest climate bill, but opposition parties have slammed the omission of a ban on liquefied natural gas from the new law. Both Sinn Féin and People Before Profit TDs have hit out at the lack of ambition in the bill. Sinn Féin's Lynn Boylan says her key focus on the bill will be holding ministers accountable for targets, a correction mechanism to ensure targets are met in the event of slippage, and adequate just transition measures. This is a bit of a tangent, but it should be noted. Isn't it funny how Sinn Féin's only function in opposition has been to take the government's terrible policies and double down on them? Leo and Micheál publish an insane climate bill which will nuke our economy during a COVID recession. Mary Lou says, no way, make it a double. That's not nearly green enough. You should do even more. Leo and Micheál lock down the Irish economy, and how does Mary Lou respond? No, you should lock down even harder. Government rejection of public health advice is a huge mistake. Failure to introduce mandatory post-arrival testing and hotel quarantine for all non-essential arrivals flies in the face of advice from NEFIT, the CMO and the public. So in other words, they're giving out to the government for not following NEFIT's advice closely enough. Sinn Féin, if in charge, would just do NEFIT's bidding twice as hard as the government is effectively what they're saying.
There is going to be a 6-week lockdown, and that begins on the 26th of December. And I think the health service would be completely crushed in January if we didn't intervene now. And the message is back to stay at home, work from home.
This is the same NEFIT that says we need to lock down until every single person is vaccinated. Some opposition you lot turned out to be. Ultimately, this is just the latest in a long string of unadulterated, catastrophic cock-ups which once again will pass in the Dáil without the slightest skepticism or pushback whatsoever. Half of all businesses in certain sectors are about to go under permanently thanks to the lockdown, and now with this new green bill, the government can finally complete the job by finishing off the other half. Higher taxes, higher home heating and fuel costs, more expensive electric vehicles, being forced out of our cars and onto crowded public transport, forced to take out a loan to make home alterations just so you don't freeze to death during the winter during a recession. I actually think Eamon's wolf pack might do a better job running this country than the circus clowns currently operating the joystick. Please like and share this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider signing up for a monthly donation via the link on screen to help us produce more content like this. Alternative media like Gript needs all the assistance it can get, and every donation goes a long way. As always, thanks for watching.